I'm Kelly Guynes. I'm a psychotherapist at the DBT Center in Houston, Texas. And I'm going to talk to you about non-suicidal self-injury and some of the latest research on that. If you have questions or want the list of references or more information, feel free to click the Prezi link on the description of this video, and that will give you the slides for a presentation in addition to the entire references list. So just starting off, a good solid definition of what non-suicidal self-injury is that it's any deliberate self-inflicted damaging of a superficial or moderate amount of tissue that's not sanctioned by society or kind of normative behavior. So that would exclude like ear piercings and that kind of stuff. So that's the technical definition of non-suicidal self-injury. There's no suicidal intent. That's why it's called non-suicidal self-injury. So how prevalent is it? So it looks like, according to, in 2012, a latest study, it's about 16 to 18% of adolescents in the general population engage in non-suicidal self-injury. About 17% of college students, and then it looks like it drops down a bit, which is great in adults, to 6%, and that comes from a study in 2014. So relatively pretty common in the general population. So I think the most important question from the research that I found is, why do people engage in non-suicidal self-injury? Why are we doing this behavior? What's going on? And some of the research has found 4 functions and kind of helped to narrow it down so we can really understand it. And some of the functions are intrapersonal and some of the functions are interpersonal. So communication between 2 people, or just myself, which would be intrapersonal. So the 4 functions are emotion regulation, self-punishment, social attention or reinforcement, and redirection of attention. So what you'll find is most of these functions are intrapersonal. So the number one reason why someone engages in non-suicidal self-injury is to alleviate a negative emotional state. So I don't want to feel this emotion anymore, so I'm going to engage in some sort of self-harm or non-suicidal injury behavior like cutting or intentionally bruising or something like that. One of the functions of the 4 is interpersonal, which was the social attention or reinforcement. So that might mean that I am trying to communicate a message. I want someone to know how much pain I'm in, and so if they see this wound, they might know that. I might be trying to get a need met, like I might be wanting some comfort, and if I have self-harmed or engaged in some non-suicidal self-injury, that might get that from my environment. And so there's a function behind it, and what we know in DBT and what DBT really looks at is what's the reason behind why somebody is doing what they're doing, and we really try to validate that reason so it makes sense. So if you really want comfort and you don't know how to ask for that or were never taught the skills for that, then it would make a lot of sense that if you injure yourself and you get that kind of comfort from the people around you, why you would continue that behavior. So it makes a lot of sense in that way. We also know that it does help to alleviate a negative emotional state. And part of the way that we know that is because when someone engages in non-suicidal self-injury, there is a release of endogenous opioids. And these are the things in our brains that are kind of our natural painkillers. So if I'm in a lot of pain and I engage in a cutting behavior, my brain is going to send off opioids in and after and during that experience. So that's going to really help me to feel better. So there's a really important reason why someone would engage in self-harm, and it makes a lot of sense because it might help me get what I want from my environment that I don't get otherwise. It may also help my brain to get more regulated and to feel really better. One of the other functions is self-punishment. So if I've grown up in an environment or society has reinforced that when I do something incorrect or bad or I make a mistake, a punishment needs to follow. And one way that I could punish myself would be to engage in non-suicidal self-injury. And so I don't do so well on a test, I might come home and cut myself as a way to just reinforce that I'm so bad. And that would make a lot of sense as well. The other reason people engage in non-suicidal self-injury is that redirection of attention. And so if I can't get my mind off of something, and this may be a traumatic memory, this may be even just something that happened today at the workplace or something that happened in the classroom at school, I keep thinking about it, I keep thinking about it, I keep thinking about it. When I engage in non-suicidal self-injury, my mind turns to that behavior. So I'm thinking about cutting. I'm thinking about finding what I'm going to use. I think about where I'm going to cut. I actually am present and what we'd say in DBT mindful when I'm cutting, which is going to redirect my attention to that versus what my mind might be stuck on that I'm trying to get it unstuck. So one really fabulous thing about DBT is that it addresses all 4 of the functions of non-suicidal self-injury. So in DBT, people learn how to regulate their emotions. So non-suicidal self-injury is replaced by skills. The part about self-punishment is also replaced by skills, and we learn that punishment is an effective tool to change behavior, and we really practice non-judgmental stance. In the social attention and reinforcement piece, in DBT we learn interpersonal effectiveness skills. So I'm going to learn the skills like Dear Man or Give or Fast of how I can get my needs met in a relationship. So how can I get comfort from my partner or from my friend or from my parents without having to engage in a self-injurious behavior? And then lastly, the redirection of attention. As we learn mindfulness, we learn to control our mind through our mindfulness skills so that I can control it to many other things besides something like self-injurious behavior. So I think what's really important is to recognize that non-suicidal self-injury makes sense. There's a function behind it, and what's great is that DBT provides alternatives that don't have the negative consequences that non-suicidal self-injury has. The other really important piece that I just want to say is, because this was also documented in the research and very much by a lot of client report, and the reason why non-suicidal is in the definition and in kind of the acronym is because when someone is engaging in a self-injurious behavior, it's really important to know that they are not trying to kill themselves. And I think that's a misnomer that someone who in that moment is self-harming is committing suicide or are on that track, when actually what people report is that they don't want to die, that they're trying to alleviate the pain, or they're trying to regulate their emotions, or they're trying to punish themselves in a way so that that might change their behavior next time. So it's actually, you really want to live, you want to make things better. And so I think that's really important when we look at the context of NSSI. And once again, any other further questions, or if you want to look at some of the references for this research, please click on the Prezi link.